Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the 2026 Primary Election Analysis Series. On May 19th, there will be 6 states voting that day. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the state of Georgia. Returning viewers know why I make these videos, but if you're new to the channel, here are the cliff notes. Trump's bad and should have been impeached over a year ago. Our Congress is spineless and doesn't understand Rule 9. We need new Congress members ready to impeach, remove, and convict every criminal in the government and abolish and prosecute ICE for their crimes. Afterwards, if we make it that far and still have a habitable planet, these are the policies that should be fought for. I understand the world is literally burning around us. We need the combined efforts of a general strike, protests, and civil disobedience if we are going to demand the Epstein-class oligarchs to allow Trump's removal from office. Otherwise, we're just waiting for him to die soon. Not unreasonable. He's 79, decaying a little more each day. But know this, our problems never started with Trump, and they won't end with his death. And they certainly won't end if corporatist, centrist, liberal Epstein-class Democrats continue to win back power. The midterm elections will happen on November 3rd. The primary elections will narrow down our options in those elections. By not participating, it guarantees the Epstein-class another seat in Congress, regardless which party wins. To fight and start taking power back, we all must participate in the primary election process and support the candidates who are sincere in fighting for the people. Let's now discuss how our friends in Georgia can do just that. Georgia is a state with a larger population size of just over 11 million. This gives them 14 seats in the House of Representatives. Currently, 5 of them are held by Democrats. But once again, when those Democrats take money from the same corporate and foreign interest lobbies as the other Republicans, are they really any better? At this moment, none of Georgia's congressional delegation represents the people, just corporations and war profiteers. Also worth pointing out, like many state congressional delegations we have discussed so far, Georgia's also has a geriatric problem. 5 of their seats are held by people 68 and over. 2 Republicans are not seeking re-election this year, but of course it's neither of the geriatric ones. Old people, I wish you long and happy lives with stability and dignity, as I too may someday become old, as I hope we all do. But that doesn't mean you should be in Congress or working any job, really, past 70. Go retire, live your life. Georgia's slate of representatives is slightly more Republican, but both their U.S. senators are Democrats, granted just not good ones. I believe this state, like many in our country, contain more people who do want better for themselves and others. The problem is, for various reasons, they decide to not participate in the process and don't vote. In 2016, only 28% of eligible voters made their voices heard. In the general, it went up to 58%. The primary elections in the U.S. have much lower voter turnout, and these numbers are far more embarrassing when compared to the election participation of other democratic nations. For progressive candidates to win in every state, it will take as many of us as possible to register to vote and vote for these candidates on every election day. While there isn't a candidate for every seat this election cycle, I have identified 5 candidates deserving of the secular lefty approved spotlight. Before discussing them, let's first review the primary process the candidates and voters must navigate to win. The information provided from Ballotpedia here informs us Georgia has open primaries. As long as you are a registered voter, you can decide whether your voice supports a Democratic or Republican Party primary candidate. In systems without ranked choice voting or a top 2 style system, this is the next best option because it allows the voices of independents and non-party affiliated voters to be heard. States with closed primaries force voters to register with a party, a decision many voters don't want to make, even if they vote for a certain party in the general election. For the candidates to win their primary, they need to earn a majority of votes. At minimum, that means 50% plus 1 vote. If no candidate reaches that threshold, a very likely possibility the more candidates there are in a single race, then the top 2 vote earners move on to a runoff election that for Georgia is scheduled on June 16th. The next piece of information is critical for eligible voters in Georgia. This is from the National Conference of State Legislatures. If you are not registered to vote, you have 29 days before an election to do so in person or online. The election is May 19th, so you have until April 20th to get that voter registration sorted out. Here is some additional information from the site Vote 411. I would have used this site to show you the April 20th deadline, but there's actually several other elections occurring in Georgia on Tuesday, April 7th. which, depending on the release of this video or very soon after, that election will have happened. For those in Georgia's Congressional District 14, or the Georgia House Districts 94 and 130, and Georgia Senate District 53. Those will be the seats voting, and if that applies to you, go vote. I know absolutely nothing about those races, with one exception, the 14th District. Sean Harris is running. This is the seat previously held by Marjorie Taylor Greene. She resigned earlier in the year. And I hope Sean Harris wins, but his campaign has been, in my opinion, largely uninspiring. Another candidate that doesn't really focus on policies. But we'll see if he wins on April 7th, and if not, he'll have another chance in the November general election. Let's now discuss the other candidates running in the May 19th primary election. We'll start with the bad news, get that out of the way, and then we'll discuss the 5 candidates running who have earned the secular lefty approval and provide an example of why you should register to vote. Even if there isn't an approved federal candidate in your area, there are still dozens of state and local level elections and direct ballot initiatives happening in almost every state. Participation is how we start improving the quality of life for everyone. As mentioned, not every seat has an inspiring candidate to vote for. In the 2nd and 6th districts, the voters will be left with no choice but their AIPAC-funded Democrats or allowing a fascist Republican to take the seat. I am most disappointed in 79-year-old geriatric Sanford Bishop. I mean, yeah, sure, thank you for serving since 1993, I guess. But time to step aside, don't you think? Another geriatric who wants to drop dead in Congress and make the voters in the 2nd district vote again in an unnecessary and completely avoidable special election. He did have a primary challenger by the name of Danny Glover. I wasn't able to find much on his policies, but in the Google search I was provided this information about him. Seems like a nice guy. I don't know much about him. But once again, a candidate who is legitimately too old for this shit. Him and Sanford. The hell is with these geriatrics running for Congress? Knock it off. And you younger people out there, start running. We need you in every seat at every level. And sadly, in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 8th, 10th, and 11th districts, even with some alternatives to the incumbents, none of them provide evidence to be approved. Those voters will have to choose the least worst options in both the primary and again in November. Likewise, my feelings are the same for Georgia's U.S. Senate race. John Ossoff doesn't have to be a terrible candidate and senator, but as long as he keeps defending genocide and taking their money, there really isn't anything positive to say about him. And none of these races had any independent or third-party candidates running either. Or for the few that there were, none had evidence to make them worth discussing. So let's move on to where there is some hope in the state of Georgia. For this video, I don't have a card made for each candidate. Sadly, just a time limitation as I made these videos. Each candidate supports one or more of the policies shown at the beginning of this video. If you want to learn more about these candidates, all their campaign web pages will be linked in the video description. At minimum, we'll discuss their district election history in 2024 and any other relevant information I have available, but each section here will be short. In the 1st district, Amanda Hollowell is running against the geriatric incumbent. In 2024, Earl won with 62% of the vote, 220,000 votes. The Dem only earned 135,000, or 38% of the vote. There could be a combination of 85,000 votes that switch to Democrat, and more importantly, more non-voters entering the process. In 2026, as long as Amanda is the candidate running in the 1st district, she will have the best chance of flipping that seat and clearing that 24-point difference. Next, in the 7th district, is Case Norton. This candidate has 2 endorsements that hold some weight. They are Track AIPAC and Citizens Impeachment. Along with his other policy positions, make him the best candidate in the 7th. For additional information on his position and how he's running, I recommend checking out this interview with the good people on the Blue Lutional podcast. In terms of the numbers, in 2024, the Republican won by 30 points, a difference of about 125,000 votes. This is an equally difficult seat to flip, but not impossible. Support Case Norton if you can to make that happen. In the 9th district, Caitlyn Gegen provided evidence on her website to be secular lefty approved. For her to win, there is a steep 40 points that this district will need to change by. It'd be nice to see Caitlyn win her primary, but that will be up to her and her campaign to inspire voters. Her campaign page is weaker compared to the other approved candidates, and when trying to flip a seat by 40 points, You're going to need to be the best candidate possible to make that happen. Show up and listen to your constituents and answer their questions. Provide them some confidence Congress can fix problems if they decided to, and explain how they'll fix those problems with your policy positions. Moving on to the 12th District, Brianna Woodson is approved by me and citizens impeachment. If you would like to know more about her and her campaign, I'll link below an interview she did also with the good people on the Blue Lutional podcast. This podcast does a great service by speaking with grassroots candidates and getting their message out there. We can help spread that message further by letting more people know it's there. Good people want to help make your life better, but they need your support and votes on election days to make that happen. In 2024, the geriatric Republican incumbent won by 20 points, a difference of about 70,000 votes. This seat is very flippable with the election results we have seen so far in special elections this year. With Brianna Woodson as the general election candidate, she would be the best candidate to guarantee that seat flips. Voters in Georgia's 12th district, make that happen. Lastly, in Georgia's 13th district, the spotlight goes to Everton Blair. Sadly, no endorsements yet, at the time of the making of this video anyway, from any of the groups on the bottom of the screen. However, I did come across this endorsement for Blair from former Ohio State Senator and co-chair on the 2020 Bernie Sanders presidential campaign, Nina Turner. If Nina trusts Everton as a candidate fighting for the people, then I know I am making the correct choice in naming Everton the secular lefty approved candidate in Georgia's 13th district. This race has a field of 7 candidates, with one of them being the Democratic incumbent, 80-year-old geriatric David Scott. For fuck's sake, Scott, retire. Will you even live to the primary election day on May 19th, let alone November, or another 2 years if elected? Come on, no more of this nonsense. Voters in the 13th district of Georgia, do better. But whoever wins the Democratic primary in this district will most likely win in November. Do not allow the geriatric incumbent to win, nor any of the 5 other non-inspiring candidates. For the best change, the best candidate, we must consolidate support for Everton Blair. I hope to see in the next weeks as this election approaches, groups down below like Justice Democrats, Progressive Victory, or Leaders We Deserve endorse his campaign and help raise visibility around him or any of the other approved candidates mentioned today. This coalition is how we can start winning congressional seats. With the exception of the 13th district, the other 4 are by no means going to be an easy win for a Democrat to flip those seats. Even in the elections that have occurred between the end of 2025 and now, we have seen seats flip from Republican to Democrat that have moved as many as 30 points. Some of these races would need a 30-point or more swing to flip it. Not necessarily impossible, but like I said earlier, in every district, what are the numbers of voters truly? Are there more MAGA cultists, or do they have a false majority allowed by the absence of tens of thousands of voters every year? If it's the latter, then you need the most inspiring candidates to get voters registered and out to the polls on Election Day. These candidates pictured here have the best policy positions. And policy is, of course, not enough. Far more important is that these candidates, and candidates everywhere, go out and do the work. Meet your constituents, speak with them, hold events and town halls constantly. Assuming they are putting in this work and meeting with voters where they are throughout the districts, then these will be the candidates with the best odds of winning in November. But they have to win their primary elections first. Before ending this video, I also want to spotlight a few additional races here and increase their visibility. Back on March 3rd, Texas had their primary election and required candidates to earn a majority of votes to win. In 8 of those races, no candidates won a majority, and the winners will be decided by a runoff election on May 26th. 4 of these races have secular lefty-approved candidates that I recommend you support and vote for if you can. Next in Michigan, a spotlight for the U.S. Senate race there. Another election poisoned by AIPAC money and establishment misdirection. The best candidate is Abdul El-Sayed, the physician and co-author of the book Medicare for All, A Citizen's Guide. This is the best candidate in that race. Michigan's candidate filing deadline closes on May 26th and votes on August 4th. So there's still some time for this election, but it's important to keep an eye on it now. I talked more about this race in my last Secular Lefty Chat episode that reviewed the Illinois primary results. We need to avoid more losses like we had in Illinois, and if you haven't seen that episode yet, go check it out after this video. Lastly, a shout out for candidate Hunter Gordon, a great progressive and secular lefty approved candidate running in Washington's 1st District against AIPAC Dem Susan Delbene. This is a grassroots campaign not taking any corporate PAC money. If you are in the position to donate, This is a race worth supporting to take down another APAC Epstein-class puppet. Georgia votes on May 19th, and these 5 are the secular lefty-approved candidates with the best chance of winning in the general election. If you disagree, or if there was any relevant information I may have missed, let me know in the comments. All approved candidates mentioned will have their campaign pages linked in the video description. Learn more about them and support their campaigns, or consider throwing me $1 over on my Patreon. The next states to vote are Indiana and Ohio, voting on Tuesday, May 5th, followed by Nebraska and West Virginia the following Tuesday on May 12th. Then, on Saturday, May 16th, Louisiana voters will make their choices. Episodes reviewing their primary candidates are available now. If you know anyone who lives in those states, please share the channel and those videos with them. Georgia is not the only state voting on May 19th. Alabama will also vote and has already been reviewed. Idaho, Kentucky, Oregon, and Pennsylvania will also be voting and are the next videos to be released on the channel. Be sure you're subscribed and ring that bell to be notified of my newest videos. If there was anything I said in today's video you found useful or important, please give it a like and share it everywhere. Together, we can make more Americans more educated, and hopefully that will result in better election outcomes. Until the next video, please consider checking out my other work on this channel. Any additional watch time and shares will help the channel reach more people, and is greatly appreciated. Thank you again for listening, and take care.